Good evening, South Brunswick. Calling the meeting order. Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the board secretary has caused notice of this meeting, including date, time, and location, to be posted in the South Brunswick Public Library and the board office, filed with the township clerk, and communicated to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger. Mr. Pulaski, roll call, please.
Mr. Raja Krishna.
Present.
Mr. Ray Keener.
Present.
Mrs. Joyce Mehta.
Here.
Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Present.
Dr. Stephen Parker. Here. Dr. Smith Raj.
Here.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Present.
Mr. Joseph Scaletti.
Here.
Mr. Barry Nathanson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Mr. Mitchell. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Rogers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving along. Approval of the minutes. Executive minutes of October 28th, 2021, and board minutes of October 28th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Moved by Mr. Keener. I have a second. Second by Mrs. Meadow. All in favor? Any opposed? Approval of executive minutes of November 11th, 2021, and board minutes of November 11th, 2021. I get a motion. Moved by Mr. Mitchell. I have a second. Moved by Dr. Raj. Second by Dr. Raj. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Victoria, moving along. Report of student representative.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is starting off with a good week so far. Let's get started with activities. For our activities for tonight. Tonight we have our last winter concert performing, the Concert Band Percussion Ensemble, Freshman Percussion. The concert has already begun at 6:30 with donations of toys being accepted of the benefit friends of JJ. Our giving tree has received over $500 in gift card donations. If anyone has any donations, please go ahead and send them to Lauren Morris's office in activities. Our Vikings closet is in need of winter clothing. With the chilly weather and snowfall being just around the corner, it is a good time to clean out your closet for the kids in need in our community. We are also in need of adult size as well. Please help out our community. We will be thrilled with anything donated. Bins are located by the main entrance of SBHS. Our student council has successfully finished our door decorations around the school. The school is absolutely beautiful and holiday ready due to our hard work and collaboration. Moving along, we have our athletics. For tonight is our final board meeting under the direction of our very respected athletic director, Elaine McGrath. Elaine has been our athletic director for the past 24 years and has been in the field of education for a total of 42 years. 42. Elaine is a great colleague, an advocate for our coaches and athletic staff, a champion to kids, and overall an influencer in athletics for the state of New Jersey. Elaine has created a space in our athletic program where everyone is welcome, heard, and seen. Her presence will be deeply missed as she has forever changed the blueprint of athletics in South Brunswick, the Greater Middlesex Conference, and New Jersey for all the better. We all thank Elaine for her service, her passion, and contributions for the South Brunswick School District. She will always be remembered as a positive influence for our school athletes, school community past, present, and future. Let's all give a round of applause, shall we? Thank you. Moving along, we have our winter sports. For girls bowling, the season is off with a great start with a record of 8-0. Congratulations, girls. Keep up the good work. The upcoming home events. Friday, December 17th, the swim home meet versus Sayreville, and girls basketball versus JPS. Saturday, December 18th, is wrestling versus Franklin, Hillsborough, and Woodbridge. Tuesday, December 21st, girls basketball versus Monroe, and boys basketball versus Monroe. Wednesday, December 23rd, ice hockey versus Edison, and wrestling versus Monroe. And the last one we have is Thursday, December 23rd, girls basketball versus Perth Amboy. High school spring sports forms are being accepted starting tomorrow, December 15th. The due date is no longer than February 2nd, 2002. Please see the athletics link on the high school website for more information. The black drop box will be outside of the high school gym entrance for the collection of high school sports forms only. The drop box will be outside of collections from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday with the exception of weekends and school holidays. Ladies and gentlemen, we only have 1 week of school left until our winter break begins. Our students and staff are excited and prepared for the celebration of the holidays. Thank you all so much for your attention. Wishing you the best. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Victoria. Moving along to report of superintendent of schools. Welcome back, Mr. Fetter.
So first, unfortunately, I have to correct one thing, Victoria. You probably don't know this yet, but the wrestling match will not occur. The wrestling team has been quarantined, unfortunately, due to COVID. So that's a little quick update. We have 2 teams down right now, wrestling and the dance team, but we'll get into COVID in a second. We're going to be doing a presentation tonight, which is every 60 days we do a presentation on the state of affairs related to COVID and safety. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by our own Jim Conroy and Tara Giardulo. They're in the back. Hello, and thank you for coming out tonight. They're going to share about the safety side of things in light of recent events. I'll deal with COVID and the reentry and all of that, and then the 2 of them will go through how it works, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I want to start off by just keeping this quick and brief as far as our Transportation High School Start Times Committee. We did have a meeting last night, thanks to Joyce, Joe, actually it's this side of the room, I remember now, it's this side of the room on that committee. Joe, Joyce, Ray, and Barry. The meeting was 2.5 hours, to the minute, I will say, to the minute. And we did get a lot accomplished. I would expect for the community to start hearing specifics and seeing a lot of information and having a chance for opportunities for feedback and input to be during the month of January into early February. We are maintaining a time for the board to be able to assess and analyze what we provide, what the committee provides. At the first meeting in February, where we'll do a presentation and then followed by a final presentation and adoption, request for adoption at the second meeting in February. So again, this is a very big deal. This is a very cumbersome task, but one thing that needs to occur for next year is we need to be able to provide transportation to all of our students in light of a driver shortage, in the national driver shortage, challenges and issues with contracted companies, and just a whole plethora of challenges related to transportation. We believe we have a plan going forward as far as how we do transportation that will be extremely helpful. And now what we have to work out is how it looks. And I'm not going to get into more specifics in that right now, but that's what the committee is working on. And it's a heavy lift, but it's a good committee, and I feel we'll be ready for the board on time. So that is the expectation. I want to just let the community know we've been contacted by Dr. Tushar Patel, an awesome advocate for the schools. They'll be running a booster clinic at the Hindu Temple on 329 Culver Road in Monmouth Junction. COVID, both vaccines and boosters. Walk-ups are available, no appointments. So if people need that, again, we put that out. Murph put that into a letter to the community as well. And again, anything we can do to help our families and staff, our kids, get vaccinated and get boosted up is good. we'll take it. So thanks again, Dr. Patel. One thing that's out there, and I know it's concerning to some families and students, is the late bus schedule change. Just to be clear with the board and the community, the late bus schedule change is a non-desired change of the district. We have no interest in this change. We don't want this change. We don't want to keep this change. However, it is forced, again, back due to that driver shortage. We are currently down to only available 4 late buses where we normally run 6. Even when we run 6, some of the bus stops are not optimal. Now we're down to 4, which just means less optimal. And all we can do is hope for a change as soon as we can. We are doing things to try and get that change to occur, but it is not a South Brunswick only issue. And so this is one of the unfortunate outcomes, is we had to reduce services in that area. And some people ask and say, well, how about if we pay? It won't matter. Money isn't the issue. We don't have drivers. That's the issue. So even giving us money won't give us drivers. If there were ability to hire more drivers, we would hire more drivers. And that's what we're trying to do. And as soon as we're able to put that back to where it was, we will. But as of right now, it's just not something we can provide. And that's upsetting to us, and we know it's upsetting to our kids and families. You've heard about this, and I'm changing subjects to the Start Strong assessments. We administered those assessments this year, and beginning next week, the assessment results, the individual student assessment results, will be in Genesis, and we also will be sending home a hard copy of the results to our families. So again, if students took that Start Strong testing, they'll be getting the results shortly. So again, and we'll be using those results, of course, to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students. That's why that kind of assessment is valuable, where we can use the data to make decisions about what kids need. And so we're going to use that, and parents will kind of know how their students fared, and related to a year and a half of pandemic learning. So we'll see. Reminder to everybody, kindergarten registrations is going on, and we need to know those numbers. It helps us with our staffing. Again, it's 5 years by October 31st. And that's going to open on January 4th. So just know, start getting yourselves ready. Let people know who you know have kindergartners for next year. The more information we have, the better we can plan. So thank you for that.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
I just want to make a correction to something you said. There
Sure.
won't be any scores mailed home. That's not, so it's not, they're not mailed home. I believe they have access through Genesis.
Okay, the report I have is that hard copies.
Okay.
Oh, no, I read it wrong. You are correct. Hard copies will not be mailed home. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer. It is just going to be on Genesis. So I apologize for misreading that, and thank you for correction. So strike the mailed home, Genesis, and we'll send, I guess we'll probably send a reminder, and it's probably in Murph's newsletter, to make sure you check your Genesis and see the results. So good news, really good news. We're excited to share that our high school's inclusive education program was selected by the NJCIE as a model program, and they requested to highlight our success in how we include education in the area of music at the high school. This is a pretty big deal, and as a result of our teaching staff's efforts, commitment, and the dedication to inclusion. Very proud of this, and we're proud that we were selected. And we've been working with the NJCIE for a few years now, and they like what they see. We're happy with what we see. It does give our kids an opportunity to be involved in music, even if they have a special need. We can still figure out ways to get them included in the programming. As we know, music is one of the major strengths of South Brunswick School District, and it's important to get every child who's interested to have an opportunity to be involved in such an amazing high-level elite program. So we're excited to be recognized in that way. Another important announcement, on Thursday night at 7 o'clock, there'll be another Parent Academy. This one is entitled Feeling Overwhelmed. We've got you. Now, I don't know who would be feeling overwhelmed at this point, but just in case, we recommend everybody go. We are all overwhelmed. I know we're all overwhelmed in the school district. We know families are overwhelmed, and there's lots of frustration out there. I'll be talking about that during our presentation. But just know it's an important one. Hope you can get in. It's December 16th at 7 p.m. And hope to see a lot of people there. It's a webinar, which you can register for. All right, Victoria, you'll like this one. As a reminder, we have a homework-free period coming up, starting on December 23rd through January 3rd, and no assignments, no homework, and no long-range projects can be due or tests given before January 6th. So that's a nice break. Kids need it. Everybody needs it. So take advantage and just figure out ways to relax and enjoy the time. Reminder again, schools are closed from December 24th until we open again on the 3rd. And that's the majority of my report. I do have a few things. One, I want to echo Victoria's words about Elaine. Elaine is extremely hard for us to lose someone of her caliber. We are thrilled to have C.J. Hendrickson lined up for that role when Elaine is gone. He's been working with Elaine for the past few years. But it's a loss. And I think, Victoria, you said something very important. You said that she was an influence and kind of a big player in the state when it came to athletics. And it's a loss for the state, and it's certainly a loss for our district. So wishing Elaine well, and just want to echo those points. We're also losing Mary Beth Edmonds, the principal of Monmouth Junction. She is retiring at the end of this month, and she's been here since 1992. Actually, we started the same year in South Brunswick. She's done many jobs. She has been a freshman house leader, administrative assistant to central office, director of professional development, principal, director of secondary ed, and then back to principal. Just a wealth of knowledge that we're losing, and we wish Mary Beth well, enjoyment in her retirement. And I've announced this before, but I'll make the announcement again that we are bringing back a legend, Gary Abamont. He's been in the building, and he starts officially after the holiday. So we're doing well with our replacements, but it is always tough to lose these great people. One other outgoing member that I want to recognize, and that's Dr. Parker. Dr. Parker, you've been a board member, Dr. Parker. I don't know if you remember how long ago, but it was 2006, I believe, is when you became a board member. You've been reelected 4 consecutive times. You've served as vice president, president, member, various committees, negotiations for many years. Just a wealth of knowledge. If you watch our meetings, you know that Dr. Parker is our Robert's Rules expert, and will always make sure if we are not doing something proper, he will let us know, and that's a huge loss. So Dr. Parker, we're just going to need you to stay in the audience for the next few years, if you don't mind.
I told him I'd watch from home, and when you mess up, then I'll be in.
All right, okay, good. So just making sure we have that under control. Hold on for a sec. Dr. Parker, also just, not only are all those things true, but I believe you're someone that has the respect of this community, certainly the respect of this board. And I don't know, this is a huge loss for us, but you get your Thursdays back. Take advantage of that. And do watch and do tell us when David makes mistakes. Okay, if you don't mind. But Dr. Parker, we do have, we do want to give you this plaque of appreciation. Dr. Parker, before I give you a chance to speak, I'm going to turn it over to the board president, who is your only senior on the board at this dais. So, Barry, a few words for Dr. Parker before Dr. Parker?
It's kind of tough, but so, Stephen, as your time on South Brunswick Board of Education draws to a close, I wanted to express my sincere gratitude for your service. School board service is the toughest volunteer role, and you took on the board duties with dedication, grace, and seriousness. David Starr Jordan, who was the founding president of Stanford University, said, "Wisdom is knowing what to do next. Virtue is doing it." You are both wise and virtuous. I am grateful for you shared those qualities with the board and South Brunswick community. I will certainly miss your friendship, leadership, and working with you, but I look forward to staying in touch, and nothing but the best, Dr. Parker.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank this community for the privilege and the honor of serving on this board, representing your interests in the education of your children. My work with the board actually goes back much further than when I was elected. In fact, last century, in the 90s, I was asked to serve on a mutual respect committee for Monmouth Junction, and then to serve on the committee that needed to decide whether we build a second high school or one new larger high school. Obviously, we chose the latter. And then finally, I was asked to serve when Brooks Crossing came on and redistricting, thing that board members didn't particularly want to do, so they asked community members to serve and to look at that. And I met a lot of really wonderful people. Willis Spicer, who we mentioned last meeting, wonderful educator, wonderful person, longtime board members, and even longer friendship with Gail Barcelo and Dan Watts, for the old timers that remember them. And they're the ones who encouraged me to run for election. And when I came on this board, we had Dr. McCartney, we had Joanne Kirkus, we had Anthony Tonzini, not immediately, but eventually we had Rick Cromie as the leadership. Terrific educator leaders here. And I was really privileged to have Marty Abshooks as my mentor when I was first on the board, and later to have Harry Delgado coach me when I first sat in that president's chair. A lot of good board members along the way. Anna Toupé, Dr. Spiesler, I remember Elizabeth Chang, high school student elected to this board. Who else? I won't remember them all, but Deborah Taylor was one of my vice presidents, Devin Patel, Arthur Robinson, Ezra Begg, and of course, Mr. Nathanson, who has been here longer than I have. All really good people working towards the education of our children. And I think our current administrative leadership of Mr. Fetter, Mr. Pulowski, Dr. Disler, and Mrs. Mallory White are amongst the best anywhere. In fact, I believe our administrative team, top to bottom, stacks up with anybody else around. We have some terrific people looking after the education of our children. Now, I've always looked at the role on this board is to provide the children of South Brunswick with the best education this community can provide. I've often used the best education this community can afford, but people didn't like that. But it's often a fine line that we have to choose between what we need, what we'd like to have, and what the community can afford in providing the education of our children. And we get to sit on this board and acknowledge a lot of great achievements. Academic achievement in our National Merit Scholars, athletic achievement in our district and state champions, artistic achievement in our calendar and in music programs like is later. All of these great things and these great achievements and bring a lot of pride to this community. But we need to remember that those that we acknowledge are a small fraction of our students. And it's every child that deserves the best education we can provide, that every child matters. And as a board, we need to remember that. We're a good district, but there's always ways we can improve, because if we miss one child, we failed. And a while ago, there was a lot of talk about critical race theory, which is not in our curriculum and doesn't belong in our curriculum. But there are still some good things we can get from that. One of it is the concept that race as we know it, white, African American, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, is a social construct. It's created by rules of society. There's no science behind it. And we often do that to separate people into groups, usually to the detriment of some groups and betterment of other groups. In reality, there is only one race that matters, only scientifically one, and that's the human race. And last I looked, everybody in this room, in this community, in this world, is a member of the human race. And the human race has great diversity within it, many degrees of diversity. And we can allow that diversity to separate us and divide us, or we can unite under the human race, use the diversity to address the problems. And when we're united, there's no problem we can't resolve. There's no obstacle we can't overcome. And I mention it to this board because I think this board has to be united in ensuring that every child, every single child, gets the best education we can afford. Now, a while ago, I was talking to someone I greatly admire and respect when they were going through a transition, and it reminded me that the concept that when one door closes, another door opens. So I'll be around looking for doors to open. And it truly has been a pleasure working with this board. And to the community, thank you for the honor and the privilege to serve on this board. Thank you.
Nice. Mr. President, that does end my report.
Okay, because there's a music department honors.
Yes, I can speak
Who's
to
taking
that.
that
So
over?
now we'll give it over to Dr. Disler.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
I'm actually speaking on behalf of Rob Sears. As Victoria mentioned, lots of concerts are happening right now. It's concert season. So he is with his conductors and music staff at the high school tonight, right, Victoria? And I know that middle school concerts are happening as well, and elementary winter concerts will happen when we get back. But tonight, he gave me some words to share with you all. So on behalf of Rob Sears, our supervisor of music, please join me in celebrating the hard work, tenacity, and grit of our South Brunswick Viking Marching Band, students, staff, and families who always do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Last year, our marching band had to be divided into 9 small ensembles and recorded their performances weekly for the virtual U.S. Band's competitive season. This year, we're back as one marching unit. Please enjoy the following presentation highlighting our 2021 South Brunswick Viking Marching Band show, Out of the Darkness, Light.
ancient times, man has longed to explain the miracle of the sun as it moves across the sky. A journey out of darkness to light. Once again, we realize perhaps we must experience the darkness to truly appreciate the light.
production. I'm glad we got to see part of it here. And a big congratulations to all of those marching band seniors. They're going to be missed, and congrats on a great, great season. I turn it over to you, Mr. Nathanson.
Still had her hand up.
Yeah, so I would suggest at some point in the future that every board member attend Tournament of Champions and try to get next to Ginny Kraft. If you all know who Ginny is, Ginny was our band director for about 100 years. And she's still writing, if you saw that. She still wrote the show and has a part in it. And I had the opportunity to stand next to Ginny this year during Tournament of Champions, and she was explaining certain things that the non-expert eye would not have noticed. For example, we are one of the few bands where the students move as they play. Now, I thought that was kind of a normal thing. And as I was watching Tournament of Champions, it wasn't very normal. Now, at Tournament of Champions, just so you know, when we host, we are not competing. We just do an exhibition. The other bands are competing, but we're the hosts, so we don't compete. It's just, I do recommend that. Ginny is the most knowledgeable person when it comes to this I think we'll ever find. She now works for U.S. bands and is a wealth of knowledge. But it's a very interesting thing to stand next to her and almost have her narrate for you. You'll learn a lot. So highly recommend if you get a chance next year to get to Tournament of Champions, see our kids. And what's funny about that is you see them raw. If you saw the scores, if you're able to catch that, you'll see that in their initial competitions, they were in the mid-80s. And when they finished up and finished second in the nation, they were, a 94? So they just keep improving all year, and it's a fascinating program. A highlight of our district continuously. We definitely were concerned when Ginny left us, but TJ Brungard is the new director and his crew, and they are keeping it alive. So congratulations to this incredible group of kids and staff. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, TJ does a phenomenal job. Not only was I at the Tournament Champion among a lot of us here, but I saw him at football games, and he was at the Veterans Day at the municipal building. So I have a question, Jen.
Yeah.
The winter shows, are they virtual or live?
The concerts you're talking about right now?
Yes.
Yeah, for our high school, they're all in person. I was
Okay.
at one last week, and mask wearing, social distancing, kids are performing, awesome. At the middle school and elementary level for winter concerts, they are in person for performance. However, their audience are only the other student performers. They're being recorded and being streamed for families to see that way. We expect for spring to have everybody in person. Or just the venues are a little bit different, and ability at the high school is there, as well as that's our highest vaccination status for kids, so safety first on this one, but everybody is performing, which is amazing. So be on the lookout to see those concerts.
So do we have a schedule that we can send to the board?
Yeah, I'll ask Mary Ann Murphy's watching right now if she can go ahead and forward that to you all.
I appreciate that. Okay, moving along, we still have some presentations.
We do.
So we're going back to Mr. Feder, I guess,
All right.
before we start the presentation.
So if the board recalls, this is something that we are mandated to do every 2 months. So this is our time where we're presenting on this. As I shared earlier, we've added a piece to this tonight due to recent events. So we do have Jim Conroy, our Safety and Compliance Officer, Tara Jardulo. I gave her a really long title today, Tara, so I'm going to wait till I get to it because I forget what it was. But it's really long. I gave you a nice long title. So I'm going to go through this and give everyone an update on where we are, a little bit of discussion, and then move it to open it up for Jim to share, and then for Tara to share, and then we have an additional public comment just for this. That is tonight. So if there's any public comment specific to that, that goes first before we move into the rest of the agenda of the board. So here we are. We are mid-December, and I'll give you my general overview of education in the state of New Jersey. It is a constant disruption. I think that would be a way to look at what we go through right now. We are in constant disruption due to the rules provided by the Department of Health, the governor, and the Department of Education. Disruption, frustrating for staff, incredibly frustrating for families, and contributing to further learning loss for kids. That is my nice way of saying how I feel about the rules we are living with right now. But they are the rules. We do follow them, and we do everything we can to keep our kids safe and keep our staff safe. But doing so is taking a toll on education in the state of New Jersey, not just South Brunswick. With all these rules, we are still seeing, I think right now, if you follow the governor's tweets, I think the other day there were 6,000 positive tests. Yeah, we're all masked, but remember, we're only masked where? In the state of New Jersey. Schools. Guess what happens at around between 3 and 3:30 every day? Kids leave. What do they do when they leave?
Take the mask.
They do whatever they do. So the rules are somewhat inconsistent. The reason we deal with a lot of frustration from families, which I'll get into, is they read the rules and they see the inconsistencies in the rules and wonder why their child is affected the way they are when it doesn't make logical sense sometimes. So what that causes is what I'll get into, very frustrating conversations. So let's start and just remind people that we are operating under the rules given to South Brunswick from the state of New Jersey. Almost none of the rules are designed by South Brunswick. Only a few random, that are built in there, but for the most part, when people get upset, we understand. Unfortunately, often they're fighting with the wrong person. They're either fighting with the nurse, the school secretary, the school assistant principal, the school principal, or me, or Jen, or anybody, because they're frustrated, and we absolutely understand that. But these rules are from here, and that's where we get our work from. I want to share some relevant topics as we update this every 2 months. Right now, we're looking at vaccinations. Our staff status of 93% is about static. Our 7th through 12th graders are over 75% vaccinated. This is students. And look at that. 45% of our 5-year-olds and up, K to 6, are now vaccinated. That's huge. It's going to make a big difference as far as how we deal with quarantining situations. Yeah, with that, we still, I'll show you the numbers, but we right now have quarantined almost 200 kids at this moment right now, even with that. So it's very challenging. How we communicate, you can follow our dashboard on the front page of the website. It's the left button when you open the website towards the middle of the screen, and that will give you every day's, the day prior, that will give you the information on how many cases of staff, how many quarantine of staff, how many cases of students, and how many quarantine of students. And I'll get into those numbers shortly. We keep our FAQ. We update it as needed. We'll have some updates this week. And we still live in the region color of orange. To explain this again, which I frustrate myself every time I have to explain this, but I'm going to do it again anyway. We are in a region called Central East. There are 6 regions in the state. That region includes Union County, Middlesex County, Monmouth County, and Ocean County. And if you break down that data further, you'll find that Monmouth and Ocean County, their numbers, their COVID-related numbers, are extraordinarily higher than ours. Both South Brunswick's and Middlesex County. Doesn't matter, we all get lumped together and we remain in orange. Orange is the reason why there's no testing to shorten a stay. If you're a close contact in orange, it's 14 days, there's no exception, there's no arguing. I have 2 emails right now from angry parents, just today, that's pretty much every day, who don't understand why their kid tested negative. What are we doing? Sorry, there's no test and stay rule. So let me explain a rule that we are lobbying for, the superintendents are lobbying for, which is called test and stay. There's a point where keeping someone out for 14 days becomes extreme. And 14 days, if you can imagine a kindergartner, 14 days, what happens? Someone's got to be home. So now you're impacting child's ability to learn and the parent's ability to work. If they're lucky, they have a job that allows them to work remotely. If they're not lucky, they have to pay somebody, find somebody, use a family member, something, if they have it, or could lose a job. Talk about equity, it's not equitable. So what we want to happen is when a student is a close contact, shorten it to maybe 3 days, let them test. If they test negative, let them come in. Make them test every day if you want for the next week. I don't care. Let these kids come back to school. We are lobbying. It has no traction at this moment in time. We continue to lobby. We meet weekly. As I've shared with this board and this community, I sit on multiple groups, and all the groups are lobbying for the same thing. We just want the ability to educate our kids. And it is completely inhibited for so many of our students at any given time due to some of these rules. But got to keep kids safe, got to keep staff safe. So it is a balance, and we understand that. As of right now, the mask mandate remains the same. There's discussion that mandate could end at the end of January. We don't know what's going to happen with that. It is currently an executive order from the governor. We don't know if he's going to re-up that executive order, if he's going to make some other, we don't know. But as of right now, that still exists, no difference. Contact tracing, quarantine, instruction, all the same, no change. We're looking to potentially make, we had a little discussion tonight, an international travel quarantine. Right now it's 10 days. We have some flexibility here. We are looking to consider bringing that back down to be able to test to lower. A 3 to 5 day test, come back after 7 days. So that's one area we're looking at right now. So that's just a little bit of what we deal with. Just some more vaccination information. As we all know, 5-year-olds are now eligible. As you saw, almost half of our kids are already vaccinated in that area. We're almost at 80% for the high school and just shy of about 75% for the entire middle school. And all over the whole district, when you look at everybody, we're 62% of eligible students, which are 5 years old and up, so not including preschoolers, are vaccinated. I expect that number will probably be, by the time we do this again in 2 months, I would expect that number to probably be close to 75, maybe higher percent, as more of our younger kids get vaccinated. That will help because the rules are different for someone who's vaccinated versus someone who's not vaccinated. So if for nothing else, if you're vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine for 14 days if you're a close contact, which is huge. So that's an important process as far as learning goes. We are still under the mandate for staff. Staff can either get vaccinated or will test weekly. Jamie Bomer, on special assignment this year, is running this part of our district and manages the testing every week. And it's going very well. Miramis has proven to be a wonderful company to work with, very easy, and it's been a successful process. We were very nervous about that, but it's going very well, and thanks to Jamie, who does a lot, and she interfaces with Jim, who you'll hear from later, and they're doing a great job. We're doing everything we can, and our people are doing fantastic. As of right now, I get asked this a lot, there's no mandate for students to have vaccination, none. Maybe that'll change, but at this point there's none, and the staff mandate remains as I shared. This is a big deal and something I want to spend a little bit of time on. When we communicate, we are still expecting parents to do a daily home health check. I will say it's getting lax. We're finding more students coming in. We had multiple cases of students who've come in after having symptoms and testing, and parents still sending their kids in before they got the result. 2 of those cases positive after they already infected, and we had to quarantine 30 kids for those 2 cases. I don't know what more we can do other than literally figure out a way to punish people for breaking these rules, which you do not want to do. But it's so frustrating when you find out that a family had a choice, made a choice that put others in harm's way because it was better for them, and they didn't care about everybody else, and I'm being blunt. And that resulted in 30 kids home for 14 days to do their learning. It's unacceptable and very frustrating for our staff, who then gets yelled at by these parents for enforcing the governor's rules. That's kind of our existence. And am I bitter? Yeah, I'm bitter. I'm frustrated. I'm upset. It's aggravating to watch these kids lose this learning after 18 months of lost learning, to now add 14 random days in the middle of a school year to just log into a Zoom. This is not it. This is not working. It's not successful to operate this way. But this is the way we're going to continue to operate, because nothing's changing. Everything's still the same. With that, we want to provide you with all the information we can. So we have COVID dashboard. We have a way for you to document if you're traveling. If people are telling us, we know people don't always tell us. I understand. People are trying to figure out how to manage their own worlds. We're always going to update the FAQ, and we'll send out a notice when we update the FAQ. It's not like you have to keep checking on it to see if we updated something. We'll notify you when we do change. And this leads me to my bottom, in red, frustration and challenging conversations. For a minute, put yourself in a kindergarten parent's shoes. They're diligent. They're making sure their kid doesn't gather outside of school unmasked or in a way that, could be harmful. They're doing what they believe. And then they get a phone call from the school nurse, a secretary, an administrator, saying, just letting you know, your child will be out of school for 14 days because another child has COVID, and your child's home for 14 days. Imagine the phone call that ensues when a parent realizes that their entire work schedule could have just been upended to the point of a problem for their family because of this. No way to test out. No way. No way. And the rule on a bus, remember, is 6 feet. 6 feet. It covers 9 rows of a bus when a child has COVID on a bus. 9 rows. Masked makes no difference. Windows open makes no difference. So we're dealing with this every day, and I get why every single parent would be frustrated when they get that call. All I can do is ask nicely for parents to please do not yell and take it out on our staff. They are simply implementing and enforcing rules that are provided to us by the government. We don't like it. We don't like having to do that, but we have to do it. And again, very challenging conversations, very frustrating for families, very frustrating for staff, frustrating for teachers, and it's wearing. And this is not a South Brunswick thing. I'm describing the same conversation happening in every single school district in the state of New Jersey, because this is just counterintuitive to education. It's not education in so many instances where we have to do this to children and families. So while we understand the frustration, we understand the hostility that comes with that, we kindly ask people to remember we're doing our best here, and we're implementing rules that were provided to us. And it's difficult, but we get why people are frustrated. I feel for these families who get those calls. And I can tell you right now, it's almost 200 families right now, and that's about the standard. Pretty much at any given time, we have about 200 kids quarantined. 200 kids, about at any given time. And it's unfortunate. But with that said, COVID is rampant again in the state of New Jersey. Why? I'm not a scientist, but it is rampant. We're seeing the numbers. We talk to any district right now, they'll tell you the same thing. Their numbers are up. They're quarantining. Right now we have rooms, we have buses quarantined, we have teams quarantined, we have classrooms quarantined, and then random students all over the place. So right now there's 182 kids in quarantine just for December. That's just the December quarantines as of this minute. That's only within 14 days. In those 14 days, we have 44 positives between staff and students. In the whole month of November, we had 39. The whole month of October, we had 43. And even when you added the end of August into September, when we started the year, we still only had 51 cases. So as you can see, the numbers are up. The number of quarantines are up. The number of lost programs are up. Transportation, it's all really, really, really challenging year for education. The unfortunate part, it's the third year of challenging education in a row, which is going to definitely have an impact on kids. No matter, and I can tell you, in South Brunswick, we are beyond fortunate. We have amazing staff, amazing admin people. It's amazing what we're able to accomplish, and we make the most of everything that we have to do. So I believe our students will fare better than the average bear, but I can't say that the last 2.5 years of education are going to compare with the prior 2.5 years of education. And I don't like saying that as a superintendent, and we're trying to do everything we can to avoid that. But the reality is the pandemic has had a major impact on education, and in New Jersey, even more so than other states. So that's where we are with our numbers. I want to share a couple of changes we're going to be making to help a little bit. Antigen testing, there's been conversations about antigen testing. If there's a positive test, whether it become a PCR or a rapid PCR, an antigen test, doesn't matter. The positive test rules. You can't untest positive. If you have a positive antigen test and then you take a PCR test and the PCR, antigen's positive, PCR is negative, it's still positive. So it is what it is. That's what we have to go with. And we're going to make sure that's clear in our FAQ for this week. Make that change. The antigen testing with a negative. There's different ways. There's a home test. That we're not going to count. Because we can't guarantee that a home test was taken 100% accurately. We don't have a way to do that. So what we are accepting are antigen tests done by a doctor. A doctor sign off on an antigen test is a negative, then it's a negative. And that's it. That's what we need on the negative. However, and this gets a little complicated, if you've taken the antigen test and side by side you also took a PCR test, then we have to wait for the PCR test. Just the way it works. But we're going to update the FAQ on those two issues. And if you remember, our last conversation we had was about domestic travel. So we're back in this boat again. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's another thing that we are doing in South Brunswick that causes kids to miss school. Now, easily to argue that it's worth it because of safety. And I'm not saying I have wisdom on this. I'm bringing it up to the board just to consider, do we eliminate this? Now, I still have to hear from Dr. Fan, and I still have to hear from OEM on this. I spoke to Jim Ryan earlier today, and he's waiting to get his information. But anytime we do these things, we always go through Dr. Fan and OEM. We just want to make sure we're not acting independently. OEM interfaces with the health department. But I can tell you, all of our internal people, we're all for it. Like all of our nurses, 100% unanimous. Jim was on the call, I think, right? Jim, we had 100% unanimous from our medical professionals. Right now, the domestic, we did reduce it to 7 days with a negative test. But adding more quarantining that we could choose to avoid is a tough balance right now, because after break, but you can argue easily after break, a lot of traveling going on. So what we did is we did a little studying. We looked at our own numbers, and I spoke with our county to look at their numbers. And we do not, of our 44 cases, they're not related to travel. They're all related to New Jersey gathering. So we're not seeing travel having the impact at this point on and we hear from parents who've traveled because they report to us if there's a positive case, even though they're quarantined, and we're not getting any. We don't have any right now. I spoke to our county of the other districts that do not have a domestic travel quarantine, and while they have an uptick in cases, their cases are not related to travel. There was one district that reported a slight correlation. That was the most I saw, was a slight. Everybody else was no correlation to that. So I wanted to share that. So I bring to the board for discussion the idea of, once we hear back from our outside of the building medical professionals, if they do support it, what do you want to do? I don't have a right way to tell you that I have the right answer. I'm just telling you it's worth a discussion. And it's something I do want to discuss. So we can stop for a minute, and I can open this up to the board if anyone has any input at this point. If you do, though, you got to run back to your seats. If you're not going to have any input, you don't need to move. But if you are, then you need to speak into the microphones. So anybody?
Anybody on the left? Anybody on the right? Dr. Parker?
So the travel quarantine is not required by the state, is that correct? It's
So
our
the state says, follow the CDC. The CDC says to have a quarantine, but the state says we are not mandating anything.
Okay.
This is the one area where we actually do have a choice.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yep, go
So-
ahead, Mrs. Rogers.
I just want to make clear that you're still waiting to hear from Dr. Fan and the OEM.
Yes.
Staff seems to be in, I'm sorry.
The nursing staff
Nursing
was
staff.
unanimous to, they're not seeing, the people that live with it every day are not seeing domestic travel as a contributing factor to our issues.
Right. So I'm not a scientist. I always think that we need to look at the facts and the experts. And my personal opinion is if OEM and Dr. Fan believe that this is an okay thing to do, then I would be okay with it. If they don't, then I think we need to relook at it. So that's the travel quarantine. I do
Domestic.
excuse me, the domestic quarantine. I do have a question about the other item, but I don't know if this is the time.
Just hold on that one, Lisa.
You
for a
got it.
bit.
Yep.
Smitha?
I would also defer to Dr. Fan's opinion, but one clarification I need is we are not currently differentiating between, the current differentiation is only between vaccinated cohort and non-vaccinated cohort, right? We are not really, we are not considering people with natural immunity who is students and staff.
Vaccinated people do not have to quarantine for travel.
Yeah, but we are people who have natural infection and developed immunity post natural infection. They don't get the privilege of the vaccinated, right?
No, they can. They just have to inform us of that because there's a sub-note about if you've been recently infected.
Oh, okay.
Anyone else on the right?
Joyce?
Mrs. Mehta?
So, Mr. Feder, right, I understand the difference is, so we're just talking about unvaccinated people who are traveling, right? So one suggestion could be that we have that same questionnaire that you're using. Have you been, exposed to anybody? Have you noticed any symptoms? That's one way. And then the second part of that would be, right, to get the testing that you were speaking about earlier, the antigen testing. Okay, there is a, Dr. Fan will tell you that there is a breeding time. If you there's a time so that he'll be able to advise you about that as to, if you've been in contact and how long you have to wait before that test is administered. But that's another suggestion you could use to, I think that what you want to do is reduce the quarantining time, not to eliminate the quarantining time. Is that correct?
For domestic travel, we have this is an area we have a choice.
Okay.
We can eliminate all quarantining related to travel, domestic and international.
Okay.
We are allowed to make that decision. Right now, we did not believe as an internal team that we wanted to erase international travel at this
Okay.
point. However, due to the fact that the students that are coming down with COVID are New Jersey, it's happening in New Jersey, they're not traveling, they're getting it from gatherings or from other ways, that we're not seeing an impact of domestic travel contributing to our COVID numbers. So we can do something, we can do whatever we want. In other words, we can say the 3 to 5 incubation period and say if you test negative after 3 days, we'll let you back in. We can make that, so it's an intermediate step.
Understood.
We talked about that during the meeting as well.
Just another small point, okay? Whenever I've traveled to go back to London, they have mandatory testing, okay, on the 2nd day, the 5th day, and the 8th day while you're in England. So that's, for international travel, that's another thing that
International
you could consider.
travel, we're covered already?
Okay,
Yeah.
you can consider that.
Just to confirm, of the 200-plus quarantine students we have now, none of them are from domestic travel.
Well, just keep in mind, the quarantine students are not COVID positive.
Right.
The majority of the quarantine students are close contacts
Got it.
in some capacity. Of the 44 cases, we do not have reports that they're related to students that traveled.
Okay. So I don't have a problem with domestic flights because in most cases it's a fairly quick situation, and they have to, they have to follow the guidelines of the airlines on top of that. So they are getting tested, they are, or they're vaccinated, which doesn't count, but if they're not vaccinated, they're getting tested to go onto the plane.
Just keep in mind also, Barry, that the rules are not associated with flying.
Right.
So you can drive to just outside of Delaware,
Right.
and you're there for 24 hours. You're now quarantined for 7 days. So it's the rules, again, are just inconsistent.
Right.
And that causes, again, we're also trying to reduce the frustration of families, the opportunity for students to learn, and the try to just bring something down.
Right.
So this is the one area we can. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I don't really know what the right thing is. I know that based upon the people that live it every day, all I can tell you is our nurses are not seeing the cases they're dealing with being as a result of domestic travel.
Right.
That's all I can share is what they've shared with us.
Well, based on that, I don't have an issue with it.
Point of information. You're looking for us for input as to whether we should move forward. Would we be seeing the change on the consent agenda for next time after Dr. Fan?
No, I don't need a vote.
Okay,
This isn't a motion.
okay,
This is a discussion.
Okay.
And ultimately, this is me.
very good.
But this is too big for me just to throw out and say, yeah, we're going to enjoy. What I'm hearing is, let me wait till I hear from Dr. Fan. Let me wait till I hear back from Jim Ryan. If we have support from our medical professionals outside of the district, do we have consensus if they are supportive? If I'm split,
Yes, sir.
If I get a 1 and 1,
Then we get to talk.
then, well, remember, we're not going to have a chance to talk again.
Well, yeah, right.
So this is our talk. If it's a split, I'll share, and I'll bring it back to my group, and I'll come up with a recommendation and let you know. I am leaning towards a split. I would be leaning towards doing this and maybe something that involves a shortened period with a test. After 3 days test, then test. I was actually thinking test, they would say 3 to 5 days. So test on the 3rd day, the 4th day, and the 5th day, but come back after the 3rd day. As long as you test negative, you can stay. So we'll create our own little test and stay process.
That leads me to the question that I had, and I just want to make sure it's an appropriate time to ask.
Anyone else on travel? Go.
Okay. So given the fact that the positive cases that you've seen have to do, it sounds like, with gatherings rather than travel.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know we have the winter break coming up. We know that we're probably going to see an uptick after that.
Yep.
So can the administration consider or look into instead, when the students come back, those that are not vaccinated, I don't know where the line is, whether you can do this or not. So those that are not vaccinated should have a test prior to returning to school so that we know that these individuals that are not vaccinated tested negative prior for them coming in and then having another issue again rise with,
I don't know that it's in our purview to force someone to test just
Okay.
because they're unvaccinated. The other argument that would be brought by someone, because I've heard this already, and is the waning vaccination power.
right?
So why only the unvaccinated? Vaccinated people are coming down. We have breakthrough cases, and we have that issue of the discriminatory nature of
Right.
mistreating, one group over the other.
Right.
We could mandate ourselves something to do when it comes to travel and a test.
Yeah,
But just because you're unvaccinated to be tested, I don't think we'd be able to get away with that one.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You got it.
Anybody else? Nothing else, Mr. Fetter.
All right, so thank you for that. I'll keep you posted on what we hear. Hopefully I'll have information tomorrow on that. I'm going to turn it over for Jen for a moment. Jen, this is regarding ESSER and the funds. Dr. Diz.
Yep, just go to the next one.
Oh, I didn't do it on this. I'm sorry, I did it on my computer.
Yeah. Just want to let you all read that. It has to do with our grant funding, and it's just to demonstrate and remind us all that we do have continuity of services. Our focus is on academic needs for our students, and you can see at all the different levels we are utilizing our grants, as well as addressing our student safety and SEL, social emotional well-being. Just one thing to point out, we're trying to address and help SEL for both our staff and our students. One way with health is through the booster clinic. Shout out to the nurses and Jamie Bomer for putting that together. It happened at Indian Fields last Friday. It went off without a hitch. I was really proud of their efforts. They wanted to go big off the bat, and I didn't let them, and they should have. They were right, and it was awesome, and so they're going to do more of it. And thank you to our partner pharmacy in Kendall Park. It's a family, one of our families here, and they helped and gave services for that. Also, mental health-wise, we are launching a universal screener. We're focusing on middle school first, and that is because of our grant funding. And finally, we are remembering our adults as well and trying to not only give our teachers the tools they need to have SEL as part of their daily lessons and just part of their ways with their students, but also for themselves. And as Scott mentioned, we do have a parent academy for our families this Thursday. Scott.
Thank you, Doctor. My next slide kind of brings up one of the elephants in the room this year in national education in schools, and that's behavior. You can read anything you want. You can open any article that involves schools, no matter where you are in the country, and you're going to see that this is the trend right now. The pandemic has caused a definitely uptick in behavioral challenges that we are facing. Another conversation that we have countywide, everyone's facing very similar, read a lot of articles all around the country. It isn't isolated to any one area. Our HIV numbers are up. I think I shared with you that we have a 2-page suspension report this week, and we have HIV numbers through the roof, but not different than anybody else. It's not like we're looking like, are we out of whack? We're not. We're in whack, whatever that means. But it's not great. The general behavioral of schools and students are more challenging than usual. The stress and the tension of adults are way high. Is that contributing? It has to be, right? It has to be. The stress of our staff, the stress of families, of course it contributes. Kids see what they see. Are masks contributing? I don't know. I don't have any scientific study that says masks contribute to behavior. But the whole general experience right now, and a lot with our younger kids, our K-1s in some schools, having a tough time. Remember, our K kids weren't in school for preschool, in most cases. Our first graders weren't in school for kindergarten. So, it's a big difference. And we really thought that by now we would be seeing an adjustment, that there was an adjustment period. We kind of got through that. We're not. It's not stopping. And again, look it up. You'll see it everywhere. So we're going to be talking about this particular topic on Thursday at Administrative Council. So we have our team there. And Rafael Morales, our Director of Special Services, Student Services, has been working with the team of behaviorists So we're going to come together. We might have to think way out of the box, but what is the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome? We can't keep doing the same thing, and this is just going to continue. We need to do something different. I don't know what that is at this moment, but we hope to have answers. So at one of our January meetings, I hope to be able to present a plan of what we're going to try and do. I think it involves working with staff, working with families, and working with kids. I do not believe this is a kid issue. I'm not blaming kids for this. But it's a challenge. It's tough. It's tough. The adult confrontations are up, and I shared more about that. It's the nature of getting that phone call that says your kid's out for 14 days. That's a tough call. It's a tough call. So we're working through all that. And while this is something that's on the rise, bigger things are also on the rise. And as we know, in Michigan, we had that tragedy. If you read the article, there was a very local school district that had a loaded gun. A student brought a loaded gun into the school. We had a situation in South Brunswick where we had an issue that was handled wonderfully by admin, as well as having a tip given to us. So that's been great. However, there's a lot of things, and we have families that are nervous and scared about sending kids to school, and I get that. So what we did tonight is we've asked these two people. So James Conroy is the former chief of police for East Brunswick Schools, and he's now with us, and he's signed a lifetime contract. So he's not allowed to retire or move or leave forever. So he's with us forever. Tara Jardulo is a parent in the district. 7 kids, Tara? 8? Just 5. 5 kids. She keeps us in business. And is a lieutenant in the South Brunswick Police Force and oversees our SRO. So I gave her this new title of Supervising Officer for School-Based South Brunswick Police Support. And that's her new title for us.
Doesn't fit on the door, though.
But when our principals have safety questions, these are the 2 people that will generally get that phone call. So I'm going to start. I'd like to ask Jim to come up. Tara, join him, or stay back and you'll have your own second. Jim's going to do a little sharing with us. So again, James Conroy, superstar, former chief of police. He's with us and an amazing job. So thanks, Jim, and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Fetter, and thank you to the board to allowing me to speak tonight about our safety and security measures and how we do things here in South Brunswick. When I started as a district safety and compliance officer, the district already had detailed protocols and policies in place. Superintendent Fetter and his staff informed me that they wanted to continue to make security and safety a priority, and we've been focusing on that ever since. And we've done that through research of best practices, communication, training, and identifying areas of need. With regards to district-wide building security, our buildings remain secure throughout the school day. Visitors and vendors are asked to make appointments in advance, and reception staff vet visitors and allow them entry into schools only after they vet the visitor outside. We utilize a district-wide visitor management system. Staff are trained in this system. All visitors are checked in. They're also run through a national database, and then they're checked out once they depart one of our locations. Our visitor management system is an excellent system. It also allows any receptionist or security officer to make an immediate notification to the South Brunswick Police Department. And it also makes interior notifications to staff here. And that is done via an emergency alert function. We also have custom alerts set up in the system so that if we have a prohibited person who's not allowed on one of our campuses and they try to check in, they will come up immediately as someone who's not supposed to be there. And once again, those emergency alerts are sent out and we're notified. Building doors, very important issue. We do an excellent job with our building security as far as checking those doors, and it's really a team approach. Like principals, staff members, especially our head custodians and their staff, our security officers do an excellent job making sure those doors are secured throughout that school day. I'd like to briefly discuss our district security staff. Our district is staffed with retired police officers acting in the capacity of school security officers. These are all retired law enforcement officers who have decorated service in law enforcement. We've increased the number of security officers in our district, and we're in the process of hiring another officer, and we intend to build out that program. But we're only going to build out that program with the finest candidates. Our district security staff, they are housed in primary locations, but we do move our staff around on a need basis. So if we're having an issue at a particular school, we maintain that flexibility to take a security officer, move him to that school, and address that need. Our district also has sworn police officers who are assigned specifically to ensure the safety of our schools. They're also involved in district training, security evaluations, and they immediately respond to calls for service at all of our school locations. It's important to note that these are highly skilled veteran officers with decades of experience working in South Brunswick. We also have Lieutenant Jordulo assigned to the district as our police and security liaison. I made the title a little shorter. But the lieutenant is available 24/7, and I'm not just saying that, to our district. She's outstanding. Her knowledge, experience, and competence, we rely on her tremendously, for her help, and she helps us out every time. Important to note, overall, the communication between the Board of Education and the South Brunswick Police Department is tremendous. It's really through training, information sharing, and the willingness of the police department to help us out and respond to our needs. We are extremely fortunate to have a police department with their level of professionalism, along with their commitment to community. We also have a full-time sworn police officer working as a school resource officer at the high school. And this officer can immediately respond to incidents at the high school. He does investigations, and he makes sure that everyone at the high school is safe and secure. The one thing also that's a great part of having an SRO at a high school is that open, transparent relationships that he can have with students. We are very fortunate to have an SRO at our high school, and it's vital to the well-being of that student body at that school. As far as how we train for emergencies, without getting into specifics, we follow the drill law under the New Jersey Statute 18A. We drill monthly for fire drills. We also do emergency drills for things such as preparing for lockdowns, active shooter, non-fire evacuations, and bomb threats. We ensure that our internal communication systems are working properly, and also that our parental notification systems are always working properly so we can communicate with our parents in the event of an emergency. We also conduct tabletop exercises with staff, principals, police department, myself. And a tabletop exercise, we'll put a scenario out there, we'll sit down, we'll discuss the response procedures that we would conduct to be successful in that scenario. So it's a great way to plan ahead and prepare. That's what we're always trying to do. We're trying to plan and prepare. As far as our written emergency procedures, we spent the past year revising our emergency operations plan. And this emergency operations plan is a requirement of the state. It was really a team approach to get this plan done. And when I say done, I mean initially done, because the emergency operations plan is always being revised. It's being revised, it's being updated, and it's shared with our partners in law enforcement, as well as South Brunswick Police Department, as well as fire districts. And the emergency operations plan, again, allows us to prepare and to plan for a multitude of different emergencies. But we went a little bit further than that, because the emergency operations plan can be sometimes a little bit too broad. So we broke it down. Each school has its own individual safety protocols, and it's all working under the umbrella of the emergency operations plan. But each school has its own individual safety protocols. This allows each school to identify its own unique characteristics and to train staff at that particular school to respond to different emergency situations. We also have district-wide emergency response procedures. These have been expanded to guide responses to specific emergencies our district could face. And these emergency procedures, there's a lot of them in there, but they're excellent because you don't want to try to figure out what to do when something's happening. So it allows you to do a little bit of reading, research, planning, and it's for contingencies such as, school violence, but also natural, man-made disasters, missing children. There's a multitude of different things in there that a staff member, a principal can read and say, okay, these are the step-by-step ways that I get through this process. And to be able to do that in advance is a tremendous asset. I also wanted to address what we're doing with regards to improvements to technology. We currently have an excellent camera system through our IT department. We've made improvements to the camera system, and we will continue to also build out that system based on a needs basis. But it's something that we're always looking at. We're also in the process of upgrading our handheld radios throughout the district. This is a really state-of-the-art radio that we're getting where you can speak to different schools, but the most important thing is that a school can speak directly to the South Brunswick Police Department without delay. They're beyond that band. So in a time of an emergency, having that ability is crucial. So through safety and security assessments, we've made improvements to fencing, signage, traffic configurations on our properties, as well as improving the ability to lock down through improving our doors and windows. And we've done this all despite COVID. Despite COVID, we have not stopped moving forward with improvements to security. It's just not something we're ever going to do. The district's dedication to security is an ongoing team process, as I said before. Sound physical security and procedures provide an excellent level of safety, but what I really believe is equally important, and where I feel the district does an amazing job, is through the positive relationships with students from our administrators, principals, and teachers. This positive culture and caring environment, teachers and staff knowing and connecting with students, is vital to building trust and allows us to try to identify students who may be in crisis. If I take the time to know you and I care about you, then we connect, and I can possibly see when you're having difficulties and I can intervene and assist. That's what I've seen since I've been here, and that is a critical component to maintaining a healthy and safe school environment. As I said, security is a team effort, so if any of you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Next up is our Lieutenant and Supervising Officer for School-Based South Brunswick Police Department Support.
Thank you, Mr. Fetter.
Tara, do you want to do this yourself? Do you
No,
want me to?
not necessarily.
All right, so you look at me and I'm ready. I'll watch you.
Okay.
So I just want to congratulate you on being made lieutenant too also.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So as Mr. Conroy and Mr. Fetter already alluded to, I went through some of the same questions about a week ago as I sat at my desk. I thought to myself, what can I do as the Lieutenant and Supervising Officer for School-Based South Brunswick Police Department support system to the school district? I didn't want to just respond, though we did increase our patrols. I wanted to give some insight to the leadership from a law enforcement perspective. I think that's our first slide. That's pushed in. Sorry, that was a little rough. Mr. Fetter, can you turn to the next slide? All right. And I thought to myself, the schools have been met with a lot of challenges regarding mental health and safety. as Mr. Fetter said at the end of his discussion. There are a lot of incidents that are on the rise, starting with, at the end of last month, the shooting out in Michigan. Within the last week, we've had December 9th, Heightstown and Howe dealt with multiple social media posts about a threat taking place on December 10th. On December 8th, the Lawrence Township Police Department handled a call where a student was found with a handgun in his backpack in the high school. On December 2nd was our incident with the taser in the middle school. On December 1st, Hal had another incident where a student posted an image of a gun on social media. Now, I created this PowerPoint yesterday morning with the help of Dr. Disler to spruce it up a bit, but since then, New Brunswick had an incident, Bridgewater Raritan, Jersey City, and in Lindenwold, down in Gloucester County, that was an incident where 2 other teens were caught bringing a handgun into the school. At Manasquan today. So as you can see, these cases are on the rise. And I thought, what is the one thing that all of these cases had in common? Was that they were reported to school staff and or the local police departments. And that was the point in the whole conversation I wanted to have with the leadership and with you tonight. It is imperative now more than ever that we establish relationships and encourage open lines of communication between students, staff, parents, and the police. It's because people stepped up in all of these incidents that none of them ended in tragedy. It's the old verbiage, see something, say something. I believe that we've always had, and as Mr. Fetter pointed out, personally and professionally, my children have grown up in the school district, and now it's been my responsibility for the last 3 years as the supervisor in charge. I believe that we've always had a good handle, meaning the school, on the school's climate. I was at Greenbrook, part of the climate committee, where we get to know who the players are in the schools, what children might need extra help, who may be in need of mental health assistance. We also do risk assessments when necessary, and we implement proper consequences in those cases. My point is also for the public that we need to be comfortable in reaching out to the schools and to the police departments. There's SROs in every school. At the end, I think I introduced who they were. So we have class 3 officers that cover the 2 middle schools and the elementary schools. And the SRO full-time at the high school. When all else fails, or if it's your first resort, you can always contact police dispatch at 732-329-4646. As a parent, as staff, whoever needs to reach out and contact us, you will get an immediate response from any person, any officer working that evening. You don't have to wait for your principal to come in the next day. If your child sees something on social media that night, you are strongly encouraged to call in immediately and notify the South Brunswick Police Department. Our goal at the South Brunswick Police Department is to keep all of our students and staff safe, and we can only do that with the partnership of our community, whether it's the principals in the buildings, the students in the buildings, or the parents at home. So again, how can you help? Encourage, see something, say something. Parents need to reach out to their children and let them know. If they see something that they find uncomfortable or alarming on social media, don't keep that to yourself. Share that and then make the proper notifications. Increase open communications with student and staff. And as Mr. Conroy said, it is because our principals, vice principals, teachers, whomever have such great relationships and rapport with the students in South Brunswick that they do feel comfortable coming forward, like they did earlier in the month with the incident with the child bringing the weapon to school. Do not hesitate to report your concerns or issues to the police department as well, as I already stated. One of the things that we've done in the meantime since all this has come down is that we have increased patrols at our schools. I've been in touch with the lieutenants that are in charge of patrol, so the patrol officers are also aware of the incidents that have happened around the state, and it offers a sense of comfort seeing the officers out there. When you do see them, just remember it's not to alarm anyone. We do not have any reason to believe that our school's safety is in jeopardy. We're only there to be proactive. The goal is not to just respond when an emergency happens, but to prevent or at least mitigate the incidents in the first place. Another, I think, important piece of information for our police department as well as the school district, what we always try to be is transparent. I think that's the difference between us and a lot of other agencies, is if we have the information there to give, we do. We have the infamous nixels that we send out. Our goal is to keep the parents and community in direct communication with the things that we have going on. Also, our chief of police is in constant communication with the superintendent, and I think that that relationship makes the work that we do that much stronger. So I have listed, as we said already, we have one full-time sworn officer in the high school, and then we have the 3 class 3s, one of which is in a private school, but the other 2 float around amongst the 2 middle schools and their feeder schools from the elementaries.
And just to be clear, you heard Jim talk about security officers. These are an additional. These are related to the police department, whereas the folks that Jim talked about were our in-house security officers. They all interface together.
They do, and they have a great relationship with the officers as well. I mean, you know, there's constant communication between the security officers and the law enforcement. So that was really all I wanted to provide, is that the most important thing that we can do to keep our children safe is to encourage communication, to have those relationships within the buildings, and to have relationships with staff, again, students, and the police department, and the parents. So that's the best thing that we can do to keep everybody safe.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, you want to open a board questions?
Not yet. So that concludes, you guys can come back. That concludes our presentation for the 60-day mandatory reentry update. If you guys could hold 1 second before you head out, just 1 second. Ms. Nathan, do you want to do board first and then I'll open it to the public?
Yes.
Okay.
We still have more presentations though?
But we have to open up, I have to do the public comment on this before we get to Blair. Sorry, Blair.
Any questions on the right? Mr. Rogers.
I have actually a question for Jim. I don't know if you could answer this or not, but based on your experience, I'm assuming that there's some type of conversation that you're involved in, maybe at a more state level and a district level or national level with various organizations. There's a lot of discussion, and I happened to catch a program last night on this very issue. They were interviewing some people from Oxford High School, and one of the things that they talked about was an app, for students to have an app that is an anonymous reporting. Scott and I had discussed this just a little bit, because kids know. The kids know what they know when they see behavioral change in a friend, the student that they've been sitting next to for the past 7 months. They know when they see a change. But many students, it seems that it's been reported through this conversation that was on, that they're afraid to say something because they don't want to be bullied. They don't want to be called out. Some of them may think, well, maybe I'm just not reading that person right. So there's these various applications out there that provide an anonymous report. And Scott talked about this with one of the issues, of course, is a barrage of reporting. Another issue is maintaining control within the district first before bringing in the police department. In your experience and your information out there, have you seen many districts utilizing an app? If you have, what kind of app? Is it something that this district should look into?
I haven't heard much about the app, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But I'm glad you brought it up because I will definitely look into it.
Okay.
And I will, do the research necessary to see if it's viable for us as a district. And then I can get back to the superintendent, who can let you know what I find out.
Would you like me, Scott, to provide the app information? Because there's a few of them. Send it to you? Okay, very good, thank you.
I think Samantha had her hand up.
Yeah, Samantha?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Conroy, and thanks you, Lieutenant Giardillo, for keeping our kids and our schools safe, and also thank you for your presentation today. I had one question. Common feature across the incidents that was listed on the screen a few minutes ago, the most disconcerting part of it was that students, there were instances where students were carrying weapons inside school buildings. So are there any measures taken to spot problematic incidents like this and sort of prevent the students from carrying problematic weapons and anything that could be dangerous inside the school as a first line of defense?
That's a very, difficult thing to do because, without, the use of searching everyone who comes into a school or using metal detectors on everyone who comes into a school, it's very hard to stop someone from secreting a weapon on their person and bring it into a school. That's why we talk about, kids coming forward, speaking up, being able to have that relationship with the school staff so that they feel comfortable. There are cues that, occur if you read about, school incidents of violence. A lot of times things were missed. And, if people had just paid attention to the cues and someone had intervened, you can stop a lot of, things can be stopped. But, there's no crystal ball, but, there are cues. And that hindsight is always 20/20, but, those are the things that I think as a district we do an excellent job because of the relationship we have with our student body.
Thank you. As a follow-up, would you think that installing metal detectors would make our schools safer? Is that something we should be considering?
Well, I think would it make it safer, but at what cost? Now, and I don't mean cost financially. I mean, are we at a point in South Brunswick where we will require metal detectors? I don't believe so, personally. No, absolutely not.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? All right. Ray?
First, I want to thank you both for doing a great job. You've really protected our children. I thank you for all your efforts. My one question I have is, do you have any long-term plans, or have you had any discussions where we have an SRO or an RPO in every building with a security officer to do the checking in of people coming in and out of our buildings rather than having a support staff person such as a secretary or something like that checking in? Because as you pointed out, cases are on the rise. We're hearing all these things. Do we have any type of plan in place so that we can put trained individuals, retired police officer, an SRO, security officer, at the doors of our building to check people in and out?
I could take a little bit of that and you guys jump in. So what we've started to do, and you can see it in who we've hired, is 3 years ago we had 0 security officers. I don't know the exact number, James, now. What do we have? Our own people.
We have 5.
Okay, so in 3 years we moved to 5. And what we've always talked about is how you continually ramp that up. So we have thoughts on how to do that. It's not so easy, and it's expensive, but at what cost? Back to Smitha's question, that's something that we have talked about. It isn't something we have I can't show you the exact plan, but increasing our security, our internal security force, is absolutely part of our plan. As you heard Jim say, he's got another one hopefully on the horizon. And Dave and Jim continuously look at ways that we can increase that force. Will it eventually wind up with one in each of the 12 school buildings? I don't know, but it certainly is something that we are not opposed to, as you said, to have someone who's trained, know what they're looking for, that's what they do, on the most important aspect I've always been told in security, which is entrance. And so along with our 5 internal, which soon will be 6, plus James is 7, we have 4 from the police department. So if you again compare that to where we were, we've only, even with COVID, we just continue to focus on security as well, not just COVID issues, but security.
And that's why I thanked at the beginning, because I think we're doing a great job. But as I said, the atmosphere is changing quickly, and the need to have people that know what they're doing and who's coming in and out of our buildings is unfortunately upon us, I think, and we do need to continue it. Thank you.
Anyone else on the left? No other questions?
Well, thank you both.
Guys. Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. All right, Depot, we're going to open public comment just for you. If you have a public comment, you're able to make it now, only on the presentation we just did related to COVID or related to what Jim and Tara spoke about. If we have no public comment, that would close the public comment for that one related to this. Anything? Okay, we'll take it. So that does close that, David, and now we can turn it back over to, we're going to bring up Blair. As you know, Blair is our anti-bullying coordinator for the district and is here to give us a report.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board. As Scott said, I am Blair Eisman, Director of Programs and Professional Development, and also the district's anti-bullying coordinator. And I'm here to report our district and school harassment, intimidation, and bullying self-assessment grades for last year, 2020-2021. This self-assessment is also known as the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Grade Report. So very quickly, what is the report? The New Jersey Department of Education is required to grade our efforts to implement the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. And to do this, they give us a self-assessment to complete at each school. And upon completion, we submit the grades to the state. The assessment is, you can see it on the Department of Education website. It's about 35 pages in length, but there are 8 core elements to this assessment, and each core element has a number of indicators underneath it for scoring. Those indicators are scored on a scale of 0 to 3, does not meet. 0 is does not meet requirements, 1 is partially meets, 2 is meets, and 3 exceeds requirements. You can see here the total possible points for each of the core elements, and a total possible score of 78 is possible for each school. So very quickly, just to explain to you, core element 1 assesses if a school annually established, implemented, and assessed HIB programs, made efforts to prevent and address HIB, and identified patterns of HIB. Core element number 2 assesses if all employees and students were trained on HIB policy. Number 3 assesses if all staff received suicide prevention training. Number 4 assesses if the school provided students with ongoing age-appropriate instruction on preventing HIB, as well as observing Week of Respect in October. Core element number 5 assesses if our anti-bullying specialists in each school met with me, the anti-bullying coordinator, and if school safety and climate teams met as well. Core elements 6 and 7 assess our reporting and investigation procedures, and number 8 assesses if we have a procedure for staff to report HIB, as well as if our annual grade reports are posted on our district and school websites. So that is a short summary of the core elements of the assessment. So here you can see Brooks Crossing, Brunswick Acres, and Cambridge's grades for, again, last school year, 2020, 2021. You could see each of the core elements along the top, as well as the maximum number of points for each. And then at the far right, you can see these 3 schools total out of 78. Next, we have Constable, Greenbrook, Indian Fields, and Monmouth Junction. And here we have Crossroads North, Crossroads South, the high school. And at the very bottom, you can see our district average is a 76.5 out of 78. Looking back over the past 5 years, you can see just a comparison of our district averages, and we usually are around the same area. You can see, though, that from 2016 until now, we have made improvements, 76.5 out of 77, but just to give you some numbers over the past few years. And so what do we do with this data? So following this board meeting, I'm required to submit the grades that I just shared with you to the state by the end of January. Once they acknowledge the grades and we receive the formal report from them, then the grades get posted on our district and school website. But most importantly, this data is used for planning purposes, preventative measures for anti-bullying. And a huge thank you goes to basically everyone in the district. There's not one person that's responsible for the prevention of bullying, so a huge thank you to all. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
And everybody, you can come back. And any questions on the right? Any questions on the left? Mrs. Mehta?
Barry?
Yeah. Dr. Parker, go ahead.
Can we go back to the slide that showed 8 areas?
First slide.
This one, the core elements?
Okay, thank you. It just seemed that
You're welcome.
most of the non-perfect scores were in 3 and 6.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So
What was
I
1
was
and
just trying to
3?
wonder what they were.
Was it 1 and 3?
3 and 6 are the one that's on the other. So.
Just to point out, too, non-perfect doesn't mean we've not done well. It's just they didn't get a point for exceeding. So we've met in everything.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the way?
It's such a confusing thing.
Okay. We're going back to Mrs. Mehta. Go ahead.
Claire, for that presentation. Just a small question, okay? You have the numbers between 2016 to date, and obviously things are improving. You say that you changed a few things. Can you highlight what you changed, and will you be using those metrics moving forward from 2021 onwards?
I think showing you from 2016 until now, yes, there has been an improvement, but I think always with HIB and harassment, intimidation, bullying, it's very hard to pinpoint the one thing that has made the difference. There's so many variables, but our administrators, teachers, our counselors, anti-bullying specialists, administrators, parents, I think just every year looking at the data, our students' needs, and making the decisions based on the school climate. We work to continue our own learning to best support our students. So I can't say there's one particular thing, but I feel confident in the work that our community does each year.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the left? No? Thank you, Blair. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving along, We're going to open to the public for public comments on agenda items only. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Complete copies of the rules that govern the portion of this meeting are available in the public at the back of the room, or you can obtain an advance copy by contacting the board office during regular business hours. We reserve the right to limit each speaker to no more than 3 minutes. It is our plan to listen to each member of the public. We will note all questions and comments made. Once all questions and comments from all members of the public are made, the Board of Education will respond, if necessary, to questions or comments in the most timely and efficient manner available. Please consider not repeating comments and questions made by other members of the public. I ask that you state your name, spell your last, place of residence, or group affiliation. Anyone interested in speaking on the agenda items this evening? Seeing no hands, I'll close the public portion. Going back to Mr. Fetter, we're going to open up the next part of our meeting, which is the agenda section, which is the walkthrough.
So for tonight, we're going to have David handle this. If you did notice in the update, David provided a very thorough background to the majority of the consent agenda this week. So in order to do that, David, I think we can let people comment if needed on any of the sections, rather than, since they've already been provided with everything, see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or any discussion. So why don't we open it that way for discussion right now on any agenda topics?
Any agenda topic?
Any agenda
If we could move through, if I could just move through this as in, we have agenda items 1.1 through 1.6 on the first page. I provided an update on the majority of any of these motions that I felt like people would have a question on. Does anybody have any questions on the first page, motion items 1.1 through 1.6? No hands, left, right? On motion items 1.7 through 1.10, again, I provided a couple of updates through the board update. Does anybody have any questions on 1.7 through 1.10? I see one on the left. Joyce, concern?
David, thank you so much for this consent agenda. I'm just asking about the agreements that we've made with North Brunswick and with Franklin Town in respect of transportation. Just wanted to know if you can shed any light onto that and why, what led us into that direction and why we decided this.
So 1.8, let's talk first. We have a shared service agreement with North Brunswick to allow their students to participate on our hockey team. This has been a practice that's been in place for multiple years. This year, due to COVID and due to just the contractual nature of how districts should operate, I went ahead and codified that contract with the business administrator in North Brunswick. We talked about things such as putting out a pay rate for the students to participate and how that was determined. It was on the contract. That was part of the backup if you need to review that. We also, I made it clear that if there were a COVID protocol with regards to sports participation put out by the state of New Jersey, that North Brunswick would follow South Brunswick's COVID protocol with regards to games. And I thought that was necessary to put in that contract as well.
Okay, so just a small follow-up. So we are providing that transportation. Is this like a mutual agreement or anything where they too will provide transportation to our students? No.
Transportation for the hockey? specifically for hockey, we don't provide transportation for them. Their students arrive at the facility, practice, participate, and have rides home. If we have an away game, the students come to our school, they get on our buses, and we transport them to and from the away games back to our school.
Okay.
So they're riding along with us as part of the team, but we're not providing transportation from North Brunswick to any hockey games.
So is it just for the purpose of hockey? Because when I read Notre Dame School, the high school, is it just for that specific purpose?
That's a different motion. I think the one you're talking about for Notre Dame High School,
Yeah.
that would be a transportation route jointure. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a transportation jointure. So transportation jointures operate as in we have students that we transport all over the state of New Jersey. And every once in a while, like I said in our update, when the stars align, we actually will recognize a student who we could pick up along the way that might be from another district, and have that reach out to that district and have that district contract with us to share the cost of the route, so that we don't have two districts paying the same rate for transporting the same students, or students who could be on the same route to the private school. So that's what happened here in 1.10, the approval of transportation routes jointures. Jill reached out, found a lot of different jointures, and I think Ray, being in the business, can say that this is one thing that's happening more now than before because of the stress of the lack of drivers that we have. We have a lot of transportation coordinators, directors reaching out to other districts to try to find jointures, and Jill did an amazing job on this one, finding some for us.
Through the Department of Education, it's an approved process that most school districts try to get some jointures together. South Brunswick's cost in this case was going to cost what it was going to cost. By adding Franklin and North Brunswick, it's reduced. They've taken in extra income, so it's a standard procedure within school districts.
It actually also allows us to even do the route.
Correct.
Sometimes we can't even do the route if we don't join, because we can't spend more than $1,000 per student. So if we only have 10 students that need to get to that area, there's no bus running for $10,000. So by joining with multiple districts, they all contribute to the cost. Therefore, we're all only paying the $1,000 to cover the cost of the route. It makes the route possible. Therefore, parents are getting an opportunity for transportation.
Go ahead, please.
Well, excuse me, Mr.
I'm sorry. My
Joyce,
apologies.
are you complete?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Trice.
My apologies on that. Considering that you have this joint venture between South Brunswick, North Brunswick, and Franklin, specifically for Notre Dame, do we reach out to any parent that might not be part of the bus route, that is maybe transferring their child themselves to Notre Dame in this example? Do we reach out to them to see if they want to be part of the bus route? They are? Okay, I was just curious, because I know some of them choose not to use the bus, they travel
They can choose, but
themselves.
they're well notified.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, let's move to motion items 1.11 through 1.13. Again, a lot of information in the update on these motions revolve around our construction projects that are supposed to, intended to kick off this summer with our architect fees with regards to HVAC upgrades at North and South. 113 is a not to exceed for another transportation company, ABC Transportation, that gave us a quote for an hourly rate at $147 per hour, not to exceed the $55,000 for the athletic transportation. Questions on any of those? Moving on to our next, is that a yes? Okay.
I just wanted to clarify if the fees that is mentioned for the architect is a line item under the HVAC project.
Yes.
Yes, right. Okay, thank you.
Inclusive in the project, correct. 1.14 through 1.15 on page 4. We have a not to exceed amount for Robert Half and a record of the awards and rejecting bids. 1.1, I would like to note on 1.15A that I did give an extensive kind of explanation as to what happened in that bid opening. And we did go back and forth with those vendors, and we will be providing awarding the bid to Unitemp for 1.15. 1.14, Robert Half, is a staffing service that we've been using during these unprecedented times with regards to trying to fill positions. And we just got an email, Kim and I just got an email today talking about how Robert Half is going to have to increase their rates due to their inability to find people to even fill positions for their clients. So I can tell you that the position in my office I filled within by providing opportunity for others to gain experience. And also in Rafael's Morales' office, our Director of Special Services, he has a position open now. He's also covering that position from within, providing opportunities for his staff to voucher some hours. Any questions on 1.4 or 1.15? On page 5, we can go to items 116, 117. Go ahead.
1.16.
Okay.
Does this refer to the phones and communication system that was replaced, or is this a different project?
This is a different project. This project is for network equipment that's on the back end of our network that needs to be upgraded. The telephone project has been completed. This project is an E-rate project, so it'll receive 40% reimbursement from the state, and was something that's been in place for almost about 3 or 4 months now.
It's the same provider, right?
Yep, same project.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving forward, page 6, we have motion items 118 through 120. No questions. 121 through 123. Any questions? We have on page 9, 124 through 127. I will note on 127, the approval of student field trips. You won't see costs on this document in the consent agenda, only because as per 18A, the Board of Education will only approve the destination of the student field trip. And just note that these student field trips costs are all covered with student activity accounts that are provided by the clubs or trips. So you're not going to see, I know that was something that was brought up in the past. You'll see that in the professional development that the district is sending staff members to, but you won't see the cost of trip with regards to student trips. Questions on 128 to 129? Moving along, we have page 11, 130 to 133. Student nursing services plan is in the Director of Special Services office if you need to review. Some concerns with regards to students being identifiable in that document if posted in the consent agenda. And I did discuss 1.33 in our board update. Lastly, we have a sidebar agreement with the school, South Brunswick's bus drivers and personnel, which will not be discussed in public.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lisa, what do you got?
I spoke with Kim regarding this, was about a week or so ago, for personnel. Given the fact that we're dealing with placement of staff, hiring of staff, actually, Dr. Parker, you were present for that too. We talked a little bit about having a breakout showing the openings that are in our district from K through 12. Not to be too specific, but a very broad brush. If we understood like how many kindergartner or 12th grade, or not 12th grade, that's a bad example, kindergarten or 6th grade teachers across the district that we have openings on, it would help us better understand what we're dealing with. And Kim and I and Dr. Parker, I think Scott had also been involved in that, and I'd like to know if we can move forward with that.
I don't know if that would be part of your consent agenda, but I could definitely provide you that information via our frontline, our hiring service, AppleTrack.
Okay, thank you.
That information is available.
Great.
It's also available on our website. I believe it's every opening on our.
What they're looking for is basically a position control roster that shows the openings.
Total number.
Okay. That I can provide a position control roster as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There you go. We concluded. If there are no other questions, I'd like to turn it back over to President. Yes? Oh, question?
I just read on the consent agenda about the expo, and on a lighter note, I was just wondering when the board members are going to get their invitations to join Mr. Feder.
I missed that. You saw what?
The expo in Atlantic City. I know
the
it's your
expo?
superintendent.
The Texpo.
Enjoy. You can go for me.
No, she wants to know when we're going to get you guys are going to get your
Next
invite
October, Joyce.
to go to Texpo.
Maybe next October.
Oh. Got it. Okay, thank you. I understand.
So our old business, I'm going to turn it back to you, David. Our old business relates to board comments. I think what we decided, we had to put it on the old business, but we're not dealing with this until January, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So just so everybody's aware, when you table an item, it stays on your old business agenda until somebody makes a motion to move it off of old business and have a discussion. But that would have to be a motion, a second, and then open for discussion. The board would have discussion and then deal with that business. If nobody's making a motion on a tabled item, it stays on there and it'll be there again in January, where in turn you guys could make a motion and deal with that item. So we're going to leave that there for now. We have no new business at this time.
Turn it back over to Mr.
Barry.
Nathanson for your consent agenda vote.
Right. Okay, we're going to move the consent agenda of this evening. Did I get a motion? Mr. Parker, would you like to make the motion? Moved by Mr. Parker. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Scaletti. Roll call, Mr. Pulowski.
Mr. Raja Krishna.
Yes.
Mr. Ray Keener.
Yes.
Mrs. Joyce Mehta. Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Yes.
Dr. Stephen Parker.
Yes.
Dr. Smith Raj.
Yes.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Scaletti.
Yes.
Mr. Barry Nathanson.
Yes.
Consent agenda carries.
Thank you.
So the question on the table is that Mr. Keener and Mr. Mitchell should have abstained from item 1.1 or 1.3. 1.34?
34. It's a sidebar
1.34?
agreement that involves negotiations. So Mike, being that that's a conflict, even though weren't involved in it, you and Ray as conflicted, you probably should abstain from that.
Are we going to do the vote again?
No, we're just gonna, if you're okay with that, we can reflect it in the minutes. Okay? Yeah,
Okay, I've got
right? Okay?
I'm marking abstentions for Mitchell and for
Just for
Keener.
1.34, thank you guys. Sorry about we didn't give you that in advance.
No problem.
Guys, I appreciate it.
Gotcha.
Okay, moving along, open for board committee reports and liaison reports. Anybody on the right? Mrs. Rogers.
So the curriculum committee met on the 8th of December, and we will have a report to provide on January 6th, the first January meeting. Also, just a quick update as a liaison to the Delegate Assembly. The Delegate Assembly, NJSBA Delegate Assembly met on November 20th. You can find the information on the New Jersey School Boards Association Delegate Assembly Handbook, but to give a quick update, they provided committee reports that ran from audit, legislative, finance, and education, special education. And they've also voted, which we agreed with, on a select group of sunset policies. I won't go through those, but they were positions and policies on education that supported business, non-instructional, and instructional information. That, again, can be found on the NJSBA website. Thank you.
Anyone else on the right? Mr. Mitchell, go ahead.
Yes, first I want to apologize to the board. I was placed on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as a liaison, a board liaison, and I haven't given a report yet, so I'm giving you a brief first and last report of 2021. We had a fall event that the Recreation Department and the library collaborated on back in October. It was their Halloween costume parade, and nearly 300 attendees were a part of that event. Also, for those who may not know, we have a new program coordinator, Mr. Rob Messina, and all the youth sports are up and running for the winter. Our last meeting was December 8th. So the next meeting, I'm not sure when that will be, because I will need to be reappointed if that's in the making. So it'll be in January sometime, I know. But that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Anyone else on the right? Anybody on the left? Mr. Scaletti.
Thank you, Mr. President. The facilities met on November 30th, and we talked about a whole bunch of different projects. We talked about a lot of our projects that finished up over the summer. Our high school masonry project is now done. We went over different projects with roofs, walkthroughs, and punch lists that are completed now. We are also now looking at the summer of 2022, and we are starting to put stuff out to bid as far as different roofs throughout the school district, as well as the generators, for the HVACs through north and south. So there's a lot of different projects going to be coming up, and that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Keener.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, on December the 7th, the Finance Committee met. In attendance was David, Dr. Disler, and myself. We went over the upcoming medical building project that we have going on, and David has been able to adjust some of the funding, and we're getting some additional funding through ESSER. We can change some of our heating and air conditioning summer projects that facilities mentioned. We can adjust some things where we will free up about $1.5 million in financing, which will allow us, if you remember, when we started the medical program or the medical building, it was probably going to be a two-part project. We're looking at doing a one-part project now because we no longer have community ed in our Black Horse Lane building. Therefore, the construction will go from a 4,700 square foot project to a 10,000 square foot project. So we'll do everything at one time. It's just more economical to do it now rather than disrupting Black Horse Lane 2 or 3 times to get it all done. Parking was a concern, but because of the fact community ed is no longer there. We'll be able to handle the parking for the medical facility. In addition, we'll be able to do and provide our staff with more services. One of the extra services that we'll be able to provide will be mental health services through this medical facility. And in light of everything that our staff has been going through, I think the mental health facility and capabilities will be a plus. I think I covered everything, Mr. Polowski, correct? I think, and there's no impact on our capital or our maintenance reserve accounts. Everything will still remain in a healthy condition.
Thank you. Anyone else on the left? Mrs. Maddow, go ahead.
Just a very short update. Mr. Feder has also already covered about the Late Start Committee. We had a meeting yesterday with a number of administrators and a couple of parents, 2 students. Went very, very well. We're looking at all options. We're also looking to, we're considering the option of bringing speakers to our meetings, and hopefully by February we should have a few solutions and some alternatives to present to the board. It went very well yesterday.
Thank you. I have one thing. This past Saturday was the quarterly meeting of the New Jersey School Boards Association Legislative Committee, which I am the member from the 16th Legislative District. Also on the call was Mike Mitchell. They presented the agenda for going into the new year. We discussed the fact that there's new leadership in the Senate. Senator Ruiz is becoming the majority leader, so it looks like she will be stepping down as chair of the Education Committee, because normally the majority leader does not chair a committee. Mr. Dan Harris, who happens to have wear a couple hats, he's legislative aide to the Speaker, and he's a school board member in Woodbridge, and the legislative designee for that district. Brought us up to speed where the Speaker, what the Speaker's looking at that point. As soon as I get the actual minutes, I'll make sure the board gets a copy of it. And it looks like the School Board Association is going to be pretty active, because there's possibly a lot of educational type of bills going into the new year. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We have one more public comment. This is a second opportunity for public comment on any topic. Anyone interested to speak? So this being Mr. Parker's last meeting, Mr. Parker, if you want to close us out and make the motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, I appreciate it. Moved by Mr. Parker, second by Mr. Keener. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good night, South Brunswick, and please stay safe.